guys, it is Saturday. I'm filming this on Saturday. Theoretically, it's gonna get uploaded today. We'll see. It's time for another week's end wrap up. So, unlike last week, which was a fantastic reading week in which I got all of the things read, this week was a little rough. I did a lot of, well, not a lot of reading. I was just like really busy this week. I did do some reading. I just didn't really actually have enough time to get that much reading done, and also I started being a little bit wishy-washy again, so you'll see. First, some books that I DNF'd. Nemesis by Brendan Reichs. I have nothing wrong with this book. I'm interested in the story, but I just like, it's got to go back to the library, and I'm just not that interested in it right now. I kind of spent like the whole week being like, I should pick up Nemesis, and I finally was like, okay, look, I'm not going to force myself to finish a book that I'm feeling that way about. So, taking it back to the library. I like it. I certainly would be up for like checking it out again. I think it's just one of those books that you just kind of need to like sit down and read, and I just let too much time go by from when I put it down to now. And so it's a thriller. It's kind of like a sci-fi mystery thriller, and it's just like I killed the flow. So it's going back to the library. I'm not like never gonna pick it up. I want to finish it. I want to know what's going on, but not right now. The other book I DNF'd already went back to the library, and that one is The Philosopher's Flight. I got about 100 pages in, and again was just like, I didn't really care. Like, because of a prologue at the beginning, we already know that the like thing that the main character wants the most, he gets. So I feel like that was maybe a bad storytelling choice. I suppose the thing is like, oh, how does he get there, because it's so impossible, but the premise of the book was really interesting. I just wasn't that interested in reading it. It might have been a book that like if I had owned it, I would have finished eventually and like enjoyed, but I didn't care, so it went back to the library. I did finish a couple of things, short things. The first thing I finished this week was Beneath the Sugar Sky by Shannon Maguire. This is the third book in the Wayward Children series. There's gonna be like a bajillion of these, and I'm glad. I really enjoy these. There's a few things that I'm not crazy about in the series so far, but overall it's very interesting. So it's hard to talk about these because they're all really short, like just barely 100 pages, 150 pages. They're really well told stories. The characters are very well developed. They're very tight as far as the plot. The most common complaint that I hear from people is they wish there was like more of the story, which, you know, it's 150 pages, so that's a legit concern. But I just think they're really interesting. So the first book in the series introduces us to Miss Eleanor's Home for Wayward Children, and although it functions as like a special school for kids who are troubled, what it actually is for is kids who have gone through doors to magical worlds and returns to our world and can't adjust, because that other world is like where they truly belong and where they truly feel like themselves, and so they come back to our world and they like, you know, they're devastated, they're disappointed. So it's a place where they can be safe, where they can talk about their experiences, where they can be around other children who are going through the same experiences. And I say children, but all of the characters so far have been like middle school or older. That's just a really interesting concept. So the first book in the series took place pretty much completely in our world. It told the stories of a number of the children who are at that school at that point in time. The next book told us about the experiences of two of the children and the world that they were in, and their experience. And so it's kind of like a backstory to the first book. This book takes place after the first book, and it comes back to a lot of the old characters that we're familiar with, and introduces some new characters, and they end up having to go on a quest and visiting some of these portal worlds. So that was really cool. It was neat to see some of the different worlds, and I just really like the series. I like that they're really short. I think that works somehow. This one was very good. I can't really talk about it any more than that because like literally everything's a spoiler, but I enjoyed reading it. It was nice to finish something, and I got this one from the library, but I own the other two, and I'll definitely buy this one eventually. They're just like $18, so, you know, it's expensive. The other thing I bought is another library book, and I'm sorry for the lens, like, light. I think it's from the camera's adjusting to the glare from the library books. This is Sandman Overture. So it's like a prequel / sequel to the Sandman series, which is actually how it's written by Neil Gaiman, how he describes it, and I was confused until I read it, and then it made sense. It's a prequel and a sequel. And I really liked this. It was very good. Some of my favorite art in the Sandman series, like, it's just, hang on, I have to find something that's not spoilery. I don't know, it's just like super colorful and vibrant, and I like the way that they drew Morpheus, or Dream as he's called, and I really enjoyed the story. So the Sandman series is a 10-volume or 11-volume comic book series written by Neil Gaiman back in the 90s, and it's set in the DC world kind of loosely, and but definitely like a very adult comic book series. This is not a graphic novel that I would give to a child or even a teenager. It's pretty dark. It's everything that Neil Gaiman is like good at, but personally I think this is still his best, at least for adults. Like, if you liked American Gods, read Sandman because it's so much better. That's just my humble opinion. I think Gaiman is at his strongest with graphic novels. Issue 1 features the Sandman getting captured and imprisoned by a human, and the question that was never answered was, how was Morpheus, or Dream, able to get captured and imprisoned for so long? All we get told is that he had been on a really long journey and he was really exhausted, and so he was overwhelmed and just like wasn't able to deal with it because so much of his power had been drained. But we never know like what happened. So where did the book go? Overture is the story of what happened, and it ends with him getting captured. So that's like a spoiler for Overture, but like, you know that going into Overture. So don't read Overture until you've read all of the other books, though, because it does spoil some things from the very end of the series. So I finished those 2 books and really enjoyed both of them. I think I would probably, I haven't rated Overture yet, but I'm thinking 4 stars, and I also gave Beneath a Sugar Sky 4 stars. So those are the books I finished. I also am in the middle of some, and I'll just show those to you briefly. After I finished Overture, I really wanted to read. I've been wanting to reread the Sandman series anyway. That's why I was like over there in that section in the library, and they only had volumes 2 and then 4 and following. They didn't have 1 or 3. So I grabbed 2 and 4 and Overture, and I was like, oh, it's fine. And then I read Overture and I was like, well, darn, I need volume 1 now. And I'm kind of mad at myself because I had volumes 1 and 2. I owned them, I bought them, that's how I read them first, and last summer I was like, oh, it's been 6 months and I haven't wanted to read these or anything, so I'll unhaul them. This is why I have such a hard time unhauling books, y'all. Because sometimes you regret it. This time I regretted it. So I went to Barnes & Noble and spent a lot of money on volume 1. And I'm currently in the middle of rereading it, and man, it's just so good. I am still reading Jane Eyre. I was doing a great job. Even like at the beginning of the week, I'm on page 361 out of 640 pages, so I've got about a little less than 300 pages left. I've passed the halfway point in the book. The only problem is that I'm getting to one of my least favorite parts. This is a reread, so I know it's coming, and I just need, like, I want to just sit down and like read through like the whole thing basically in one sitting and not like prolong the agony. So I've just been kind of like waiting for a chance to sit down with the book for a couple of hours, and I just haven't had that kind of time. So that's why I haven't finished this yet. I should finish this by next week. I don't want it to drag on, and I have other classics to read, and I can't start them until Jane Eyre is over. I also picked up Falling Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes. The 5th book in the series and the final book came out this spring, I think, and a bunch of people on BookTube were talking about it, so I kind of just like filed its existence away, and when I saw the book at the library, I grabbed it. I've been looking for like a good fantasy series, that I can just like read and enjoy, that's not like too much. And I don't even know what I mean by that. It's one of those like I know it when I see it kinds of things. This is kind of what I was looking for. Because the story is a 5-book series, I feel like I'm not gonna know what's going on even like in this book entirely. You can kind of see like pieces getting moved into place so far. We're really just kind of getting to know the characters. Like it's a very, it doesn't feel like slow, but it's a slow moving story. You can tell that Rhodes has planned for there to be like quite a number of books. I don't know if she planned for 5 necessarily, but definitely this was not meant to be like a duology or a trilogy that she just expanded later. Anyway, so Falling Kingdoms is about 3 kingdoms and some teens, it's YA, some teens who live in each of the kingdoms, and they have been at peace with each other for a long time, but for various reasons, there's kind of a war looming. So you have this, and then in the midst of that are some teenagers who are involved in the problems of the kingdom for various reasons. They're either like princes and princesses or have a vested interest in changing the way things are. And so far that's kind of all I know, but it's definitely been very interesting and enjoyable to read. I just picked it up the other day and I just like haven't had a lot of time to read. I'm on page 170. It's doing a good job. I'm enjoying it. And then while I was at the bookstore, I picked up Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. I didn't want to get the paperback. Or the mass market paperback. I really don't like mass market paperbacks, but it was all they had. And once I saw the price of Sandman, I was okay with buying this one because Sandman plus the mass market paperback was like about as much as I was expecting to spend on Sandman plus the trade paperback. So that, you know, I don't really know a whole lot about this except that it's one of his early series, and I'd like to kind of get to know Sanderson a little bit before I commit myself to the Way of Kings series, which apparently has like a lot of books in it, and they're like humongous. So before I like commit to that, we're gonna read this, which is a trilogy, and therefore feels a lot more manageable. I started it, but I'm literally like in chapter 2. I didn't even put a bookmark in because I was lazy. No, lies. I read the prologue. So I'm on page 19. Yay, me. So far very interesting, good prologue. Like it made me interested in the story. It told me some stuff about the world. It told me a little bit about the magic. It told me a little bit about the politics. It was like a really informative plot, like prologue. And I haven't met any of the main characters, I think. And I'm still like, oh, okay, yeah, let's read this book. I will say, like, the thing that made me actually buy this book, so publishers, if you're listening, which they're not, but if you're listening, I was okay with the mass market paperback because it's floppy. It's a floppy book. Okay, I'm done now. That's actually one of the things I really hate about mass market paperbacks is a lot of the time they feel very stiff, and I'm afraid to read it. It's like not comfortable to read because otherwise you break the spine and then it starts to fall apart. But because it's floppy, it's easier to hold and kind of like stretch, and you can get to the words in the side. They just like don't have good margins. Okay, that's my rant. So next week's TBR, kind of these books, plus I'm gonna finish Sandman and pick up volume 2, and then I have other library books that I will read. I don't really know. I'm not gonna do a formal TBR because we saw how well that worked out last week. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about all of the books that I've mentioned. If you've read any of them, no spoilers please. Have you read the Sandman series? What do you think? I need to talk to someone about this. And tell me what you're reading this week, because I would love to get more book suggestions so, you know, my TBR can get longer, because that's exactly what it needs to do. So that's it for this video, guys. If you would like to follow me on the social media things, they are linked in the description below. If you haven't subscribed already, be sure to do that. There's a button somewhere around, I don't know, actually. It's on the end screen. You could click that one. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!